What's going on, sports card hobby family? It is another day, another sports card video. Today we're going to talk about impulse collecting and how it can doom us all. I will dive into exactly what I'm talking about. A couple of housekeeping notes right out of the gate. A great episode of Taking Stock with Jeremy Lee and DPZ on last night. Definitely check that out. The recording, the re-record, I think it was about 90 minutes or so. But really good episode talking about hobby burnout, different ways to kind of navigate that and just what people are feeling and so forth. It was a really good show. Also on the Sports Card Dad YouTube channel tonight, I will have Alex Winter, the president of Hake's Auctions, will be hanging out with us tonight. We'll talk about a few items. We'll just kind of pick a few items, talk about them on their current July auction, their huge summer auction, and just get to know Alex better. So really looking forward to that. That will be at 9 p.m. Eastern on the channel. Thanks to today's video sponsor, Hake's Auctions. Unbelievable items, huge range that Hake's Auctions brings. One of the oldest auction houses going back to 1967. Definitely check them out. I will have a link in the video description as well as pinned in the comments. Don't miss out. There are some incredible items up on Hake's Auctions currently. All right, guys, as I was watching Taking Stock last night, it kind of inspired today's video. I was thinking through some things, and it was a video actually I've been wanting to make for a little while, but what they were talking about last night, it kind of inspired what we're talking about today, and I think a lot of people, frankly, can relate to this. If you're a collector, you're a hobbyist, this has happened to all of us, I think, at some point. Impulse collecting. What do I mean by this? I'm going to give some personal examples myself where I have impulse collected, and it's kind of backfired on me a little bit. But I want to reiterate something that I think is really important. I say this all the time. When you first get back in or back into this hobby, you don't have it all figured out. You don't know what your lane is. They were talking on the show last night about staying in your lane. Stay in your lane. Make sure you stay in your lane. Well, when you first get back in, you don't know what your lane is. You might have an idea of what that is, even if you have a defined player. Let's say you're a hockey fan and, Wayne Gretzky is your favorite player of all time. You're going to collect Wayne Gretzky stuff. Well, Wayne Gretzky has a zillion different cards. He also has sports memorabilia stuff. Do you want a signed puck, a signed hockey stick, a jersey? There's a lot of different options just for that one player, let alone if you're collecting a variety of different things. This is where I run into a problem. If you know me, you look at my wall back here, and I've shown kind of some different collectibles on my channel over time. I'm an 80s, 90s nostalgia geek. So, for example, I recently picked up Mad Balls, sealed Mad Balls, because these are huge nostalgia for me. This is going back to 1986 is when these were made. I've got 3 of them. This is from the Series 2 version. I also collect video games, graded video games. So, of course, this is one of the first 30 NES titles, the inaugural titles, the first 30 games ever created for NES. And then we've also got sealed Masters of the Universe. This is the type of stuff that I collect, and there's other things as well. So as you can see, I've got, outside of even sports cards, I've got a variety of different stuff, just 80s, 90s nostalgia stuff. And so this is even more of a problem for me. I say problem, but it's just more of a challenge. It's more of a challenge to really stay focused. And like I said, you don't know what you don't know until you get back in. You kind of live and learn a little bit. You buy and get into certain things, and then you decide to sell off other things. And I'll use a couple of examples here. A year and a half ago, maybe at this point, I decided I'm going to get into NASCAR cards. I was looking at the price of like 2016 Prism NASCAR, and they were so low compared to really all of the other sports. I just watched a Daytona 500. It was really entertaining. And I was thinking, man, NASCAR cards will probably have their day in the sun at some point down the road. So why don't I get in on some NASCAR cards? Well, inexpensively able to get in on some really cool cards. I'll show an example. And I do have probably about a dozen Richard Petty autographs. Not rare for Richard Petty autographs. There's a lot of different types. He's got a great signature. So it's just a matter of kind of which cards and, on card or sticker. All of my stuff is on card for Petty. But I probably have a dozen different ones. And you can get even memorabilia cards that are attached to it for very low. And national treasures, so kind of like big name brands, you can get at a very reasonable price for basically the GOAT of NASCAR racing. Now, the mistake I made was I also branched out into, a bunch of other racers. Oh, who are the new racers? Who's this? Who's that? So I bought a variety of different things, different inserts, all these things. at low prices, but it's still volume that adds up over time. And I'm thinking, like, at some point these probably get their due. And maybe I can sell off some of them, and that helps pay for like the Richard Petty autographs that I've got that I want to hold on to, and some Jimmy Johnson autographs I want to hold on to. So that's the thought process. Second example, Marvel card boom. And one thing the Marvel card boom did for me was it helped bring light to a lot of the newer Marvel sets that I really didn't know anything about. So really, when I was thinking Marvel cards going back a few years, it was just 1990, 91, 92 Marvel Universe. That's what I collected as a kid, kind of the, I wouldn't say vintage because there's also 60s, 70s stuff as well, but that was really the stuff that my age group collected was 1990 MU, 91, 92, and I love the styles, the designs, especially of 90 and 91. And so PMGs obviously were way too expensive, went to the moon and all this and that. And to be honest with you, like I think PMGs look cool, but I'm not set on PMGs, you know, to where I was like, oh man, I'm so in love with PMGs. But what I did was I looked at 2013 Fleer Retro and 2015 Fleer Retro Marvel, and I was looking at what are some of the other inserts or some of the other chase cards, and I landed on the autograph cards. So this is the 1992 Impel insert for Magneto, but it's autographed, and you can get the regular version and it's fairly available. The autograph version is like 1 out of 900 packs for 1992. They actually get more rare as you go up. So like 90 is 1 out of 576 packs, 91 is like 1 out of 700, and 92 is like 1 out of 900 packs. So you just don't see these. This is the only one that I've ever seen on eBay that I had bought in a year and a half that I had been looking into these, and I still look into them. And this is for 2013 Fleer Retro. I also will show an example. This is 2015 Fleer Retro. These are less scarce in this particular set, but they are still pretty scarce. But what I love about it is it's a recreation of that 1990 MU set that I love. It's just a different, different picture, but it's the same design. And then it's signed by an artist. So pretty cool. And then here's an example of the 91 version from 2013. This is the signed Hulk. I've got actually a couple of copies of this. And so I got these and I landed on these because of the nostalgia of 1990, 91, 92 MU. And these have stuck. I love these, and those are gonna be the ones that I hold really for Marvel. But I'd also bought Intimidation Nation. With Fleer Retro, it's kind of similar with baseball, basketball. You can get Intimidation Nation and kind of all those same inserts that you can get from those 90s inserts. Fleer Retro kind of recreated these. And so I got some of these other things. And then over time, it was like, why do I need these other things? And so I just basically got rid of all of the other things and held on to the set that I really liked, that had that nostalgia feel, that had a cool chase to it. And I also did the same thing with football card inserts. If we go back to the 90s, Decided Edge, I was like, man, these are pretty rare. If you actually look at the print runs, the pack odds for Decided Edge, it's 90s metal, I believe 97 or 98 metal. I can't remember the year. But over time, too, I've just been kind of like, man, do I really care that much about this particular insert? And the reality is there was just other things that I wanted. There was just other things that popped up, and it was like, all right, which inventory am I going to look at to sell to then be able to fund these new things? And these are always kind of that thing that you're looking at. You've got certain cards, like I've got, Bart Starr rookie card, 86 Fleer Jordan Sticker rookie card. Those are certain cards I don't want to move them at all. Those are going to stay there. I've got certain Breeze cards that I'm not moving at all. But these are the types of things where it's like I went off on a little bit of a tangent here because I got kind of excited about something. I impulse collected into a niche area, or not even a niche area, but just, a set that I thought was cool at the time, and then decided against later on. Now, Stranger Things cards, I thought a lot about this. A year ago is when I started buying Stranger Things cards, and I instinctively thought about this exact thing. Am I buying into this because I'm just kind of impulse collecting, because this is the cool thing of the moment? I really need to put some thought into it, and I did. I put a lot of thought into it, and for those that don't know, I watched that show with 3 out of my 4 kids, because my youngest is a little bit too scary for him. He's 8. But my 19-year-old, my 17-year-old, and my 10-year-old, it's a big thing for our house to watch the show. We're rewatching, seasons. So I thought about it and kind of the current present importance of that show and these cards to me, and the future nostalgia for me. If I have these cards in 10, 15, 20 years, I will be able to look back and remember the time when my kids were younger and we actually, we enjoyed something together. Because as you know, if you have kids, they go off in their own thing. They're doing their own stuff. And eventually, you kind of get, not that you get left behind as a parent, but you're just not as important as you used to be. And so I want to hang on to memories. And this particular show is what that is for me. So they might not be interested in the cards down the road, but for me, I can always look at the cards and it'll bring back these sorts of same memories as I have when I look at my 80s, 90s geeky nostalgia stuff. Because when I look at that stuff, it takes me back to the good times of childhood. So that's where the focus on Stranger Things has been pretty heavy for me and continues to be so. I made a video about this going back to January, sports card addiction, and really it was impulse buying control was really, I didn't have it. And I have a little bit of a history of that to where my impulse control, not great. So that's why I wanted to make that video. And I got a lot of relatable responses like, hey dude, you're speaking to the choir, you're preaching to the choir. And I thought it was important just to acknowledge like, hey, look, we're human beings. Sometimes we're going to do this to where we get all excited about something and we go off the deep end and then realize later like, okay, that was just a moment. That was an emotional moment in time where we got wrapped up into something. And then you've got to kind of backtrack. You've got to sell. And unfortunately with collectibles, if you have to sell, if you're not holding that thing long term or you're not collecting that thing long term, selling fees and everything else, a greater chance you're taking a loss on that item. And so it's taught me to really, really think and be intentional. And I think there's a lot of longtime collectors that are great at this, where they have found their lane, but I'm sure it's taken time for them to find their lane. So that's not something I really hear talked about a whole lot. So I wanted to talk about it here today. It just takes time to find your lane. And guess what? You might find your lane and then your lane changes. Even if you're 5 years, 10 years into it, you might see something else and you're like, man, these are really cool. I want to get into this as well. And that's kind of the fun and also the big debate, because you see collectors that are like, oh my gosh, you sold this card or you sold that or you're buying into this. Why are you doing that? And it's because we all have different collecting tastes that have the ability to change over time. One person I'll say, Andy, she blinded me with Refractor's YouTube channel. He's really good at this. The joke is kind of like, oh wow, Andy bought a card at the National. He has great control to where he does know his lane. He knows exactly what he's collecting. He's looking for stuff, but he's not reaching on anything. He's just in his zone. But again, he's been doing it for a long time. So I think don't be so hard on yourself if you're falling into this, man, I FOMO'd into this or I YOLO'd into this particular thing, because we have all done that. That's all part of the process. I think the main thing is just, as that's happening, instead of running out and just buying on eBay, and this is also the hot new player, the hot new prospect, the hot new product, it's a lot of just like taking a step back and just really thinking through, what you're doing before doing it. Something I'm trying to continue to learn over time, and I thought it would be worth talking about. All right, guys, stay healthy, stay awesome, and don't forget to join us tonight. Hake's Auctions and Alex and I will be on at 9 p.m. Eastern. See you later.